Indie games, indie games, indie games. Today I'm going to be deciding the best thing about every indie game. At least every indie game that I've played. Some of these picks are going to be rather difficult, and some of them are rather easy. Obviously there's still a lot of prominent indie games I haven't played, but today we'll be covering 22 indie games in total, so let's go ahead and begin. Starting in alphabetical order, we have Animal Well. This game does a couple things extremely well, but the best thing about it is the art style. It's based on the Atari 2600, and whether you want to keep the scan lines on or turn them off, the game looks great. The atmosphere is also really cool, but yeah, more specifically, you gotta go with the art style. Moving on to Blasphemous. The best thing about this game, now I haven't done all of the content in this game just yet, but I think I gotta go with the bosses. They're super high quality in a game that doesn't really have any other standout features. I just think the bosses is the thing that sticks out above all else. I wouldn't blame you for saying the music is the best thing about it though. I'm probably gonna make a video about this game soon since I replayed it and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, let me know what you think is the best thing about it. Because next up is the sequel, Blasphemous II. And this one is a bit more difficult. I like this game more than the first game because there's just so much to love. The art style is a bit better, the exploration is a bit better, the music and bosses are just as good, but one thing that I really appreciated in this game is the pacing. There isn't really any boring moments throughout Blasphemous 2, making it a game you will simply become addicted to. Truly a phenomenal sequel to an already very good game, but I gotta give it to the pacing. Next up is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and I think this is a rather easy pick. This game isn't all that amazing, but the music is. There's not a single other feature I would even consider for this video. The music in this game is legendary, at least when you compare it to its other aspects. Not a bad game, but the music is without a doubt the best part of it. Coming up next is Dead Cells, and this is a masterpiece of a game, but I say out of all of the features, the best thing about it simply has to be the combat. It's my favorite combat in gaming. Very limited contact damage, good parrying, dodging, fluid controls, tons of weapons, items. It's everything I ever wanted from two-dimensional combat mechanics, and for that reason, no other feature can top it. Moving on to Deltarune. So this is a game that has not been fully released. There's supposedly going to be new chapters coming out soon, but I'm probably just gonna wait until it fully releases in a few years. I'm not the biggest fan of this game. I did play the 2 chapters that currently exist. I think I just go with the comedic writing. I'm sure I'll like it more when it fully releases, but as of right now, just not something I'm too interested in. Moving on to Ender Lilies. There's not many, I guess, standout features about this game. I guess you could say the bosses, but I'm gonna go with something a bit vague. The best part about this game is the lack of issues. Usually I am able to critique the games I play, but I really didn't have a single problem with Ender Lilies. Not saying it's one of my favorite games ever or anything, but it's just not a game I was able to effectively criticize. It doesn't really do anything wrong. Moving on to Hollow Knight, one of my favorite indie games. There are a lot of things Hollow Knight succeeds at. I could go with the exploration, the bosses, the lore, the art style, the amount of content, a lot of good choices. If I absolutely had to choose, I think I will end up going with the bosses, just because there's so many of them. They're not all great, but when they're good, they're really good. Let me know in the comments what the best thing about Hollow Knight really is. Next is Just Shapes and Beats, a short but sweet rhythm game that is pretty nice. There's not that many features in this game since it's more on the simple side, so the best part about the game has to be just the level design itself, as it's extremely well crafted. Next up, Lethal Company, a multiplayer horror game with proximity chat, so it goes without saying that the best thing about it is the comedic moments. Example,
Look on the side of the, look on the—
oh! Yeah, I'm not usually a fan of horror games, but playing the game with friends is irresistible. It's just so fun. Just make sure you don't play it too much or else you'll eventually get really burnt out, which is the reason it's been a while since any of us have hopped on. But yeah, I've still had so many hilarious moments, whether it's accidentally falling to my death or watching someone else do the same thing. It's a great time either way. Up next is Nine Souls. The best part about this game is fairly obvious: the bosses. This game has some truly incredible video game boss fights. It's still a fairly new game, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But yeah, just pick the game up for yourself. The rest of the features aren't game changing or anything, but you'll still have a great experience. Moving on to Pizza Tower, I'm probably just gonna go with the art style on this one. Yeah, I know the level design is really unique, but I don't think it's always as perfect as it might seem. You could also go with the music though, I wouldn't blame you for that. I'm just gonna go with the art style. The Microsoft Paint look is just really goofy and expressive, which is exactly what this game is attempting. And now we talk about Sea of Stars. I think I'll go with the combat for this because it's probably my favorite turn-based combat out there. It's got other things going for it like the art style, the music, but I think the game really shines with its combat. Like most RPGs, the pacing isn't too great, but when the gameplay remains great, that's hardly an issue. Coming in next is going to be Shovel Knight, and it's a bit of a conflicting one because the gameplay isn't that great in comparison to some of the other games on this list. And to be honest, I think the best part about this game is once again the art style. Now, I know that the 8-bit graphics might not be appealing to everybody, but it's what this game is trying to do, and it truly does capture that aesthetic and feeling. The only thing that could help it more would be if the game had scanlines, and honestly, this had me thinking, I wonder if anybody has ever tried putting this game on an NES cartridge. That would be really fun to see. Now we get to Stardew Valley. This game does so much well, but out of all of the high quality content here, I gotta go with the music. Whether you want something catchy, soothing, or inspiring, the music is really amazing. It really reminds me of Minecraft's music in the way that it's a more cozy and laid back style game, and it's just really comforting, even if half of the game involves racing against a clock to get things done. There's not really any absolute standout features in Stardew Valley, so let me know what you would have went with in the comments. Next, we have a game called Stray, and it's not really my type of game, but I think I have to go with the graphics. You could also go with the pacing since it's a rather short video game. It only took me a few hours, but it's also probably the most graphically impressive indie game ever made. I mean, it just looks incredible. So yeah, not much else to add. So coming up next, we have Super Meat Boy. The best part about this game easily has to be the level pacing. Most platforming levels take about 4 to 8 minutes to complete. In Super Meat Boy, these levels are like 30 seconds long. As somebody who plays a lot of platformers, Super Meat Boy was a super refreshing change of pace. It kept me glued to the screen with each bite-sized level. Super fast-paced and one of the best indie platformers. And next on the list, we have the best-selling indie game ever made, if you don't count Minecraft, which isn't an indie game anymore. We have Terraria. The best thing about this game, oh man, I mean it's arguably the best indie game, so there's so much to love, but I think I'll give it to the replayability. I'm sure most of us have replayed Terraria multiple times. Whether you want to choose a higher difficulty, try out a different class, try a custom seed, there is so much to do in this game, and it always feels different enough to be worth it, especially for $10, man. What a game. Coming up next is the Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2 Deluxe. Now this game is obviously based around the Angry Video Game Nerd YouTube series, one of the greatest YouTube channels ever, might I add. And yeah, naturally the best part about this game is the fan service. Seeing so many references to the show is really cool, and I'm not going to spoil a single thing since I encourage you all to check this game out, or at least check out the show since it's one of the reasons I started my YouTube channel in the first place. The game itself is not even bad either. I actually really enjoyed the gameplay in this game. It's hard. Stupid hard. But it's still insanely fun. And coming up next, we have The Messenger. The best part about this game is the gameplay twist. For the first couple hours of the game, it's just a normal platforming game, but then you reach a point in the game where you get a map, and thus, it opens up into a less linear Metroidvania style game. It's not a game that's for everybody, but The Messenger is really phenomenal at adverting expectations, and for that, I just love the game. And next up, we have another incredibly influential indie game, Undertale, and it's quickly become one of the most influential games of all time, and to be honest, I think the best thing about it has to be the music, and it's not even particularly close. After all, the game was literally designed after the music was. The music quite literally came first. Even if you've never played Undertale, if you've been on the internet at all in the past 10 years, you cannot escape the music from this game. Whether it's Megalovania, the hotel theme, you've probably heard over half of the game's soundtrack, even if you've never even played, and it's for good reason too. It's one of the greatest video game soundtracks ever, and for the final indie game of the video, let's talk about Voidwrought, a Metroidvania game that released in late 2024. The best thing about this game is probably just the exploration. I enjoyed the exploration in most Metroidvanias, and this game was no exception. It was just really fun to get upgrades, discover new enemies, treasures, slowly complete the map. I know it's cliche, but yeah, you can never go wrong with exploring in a Metroidvania game. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. These were basically all the indie games that I've either beaten or have played most of the currently existing content in them. It was a fun video to make, and thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any differentiating opinions. And I know there's still a few indie games that I really need to get around to playing. I just have so many games to play at the moment. It's a bit overwhelming, but don't worry, I'll play all of these games, and then I'll let you know what I think about them. So thanks for stopping by, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I'll talk to you again soon.